Good morning, everyone, and this is part 2 of review for APUSH Period 7, which starts with the Great Depression in 1929 and goes to World War II in 1945. And let's dive on in. The Great Depression and the New Deal, 1929 to 1939. The Great Depression was a dark time in the 1930s where a financial and industrial slump occurred in the economy. Causes of the Great Depression was the stock market crashing, known as Black Tuesday, causing many people to become unemployed. In 1933, a quarter of the workforce were without jobs, leading people to become homeless. Bank failure was also another cause of the Great Depression, by banking deposits becoming unsecured, causing families to lose their entire life savings. The outbreak of World War II ended the Great Depression by providing available jobs, such as 12 million people joining the military, and with jobs that took care of the 17 million people that were unemployed by 1939. Also, the outbreak of the Great Depression caused many people to blame President Herbert Hoover for this incident because it was his time in office when the U.S. economy plummeted to his own policies that contributed to the crisis. The New Deal was a series of federal programs, public work projects, financial reforms, and regulations enacted in the United States during the 1930s in response to the Great Depression. New Deal programs were financed by tripling federal taxes from $1.6 billion in 1933 to $5.3 billion in 1940. Excise taxes, personal income taxes, inheritance taxes, corporate income taxes, holding company taxes, and so-called excessive profit taxes all went up. The most important source of New Deal revenue were excise taxes levied on alcoholic beverages, cigarettes, matches, candy, chewing gum, margarine, fruit juice, soft drinks, cars, tires, telephone calls, movie tickets, playing cards, electricity, and radios. These and many other everyday things were subject to New Deal excise taxes, which meant that the New Deal was substantially financed by the middle and lower classes. Programs that came out of the New Deal were Social Security Administration, Fair Label Standards, Wagner Act, United States Housing Authority, Homeowners Loan Corporation, Agriculture Adjustment Administration, Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, Banking Act of 1935, and much, much more. Japanese internment camps, 1942 to 1945. It was America's goal to stay neutral during World War II, but an attack on our home country in 1941 shook the entire country and forced us into war. This attack was the Japanese bombing of the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. Because of this attack, many Americans began to fear the Japanese, and there were lots of Japanese immigrants along the west coast of America. Because of this, FDR enacted Executive Order 9066, stating that all Japanese in America must be sent to relocation centers, now known as internment camps, where they would be monitored closely. They stayed in barracks and were given clothing and meals. Surprisingly, there was very little pushback from the Japanese, and they did as the American people wished, with little to no complaining. There were still some instances of violence in camps, but no notable riots ever broke out. The internment camps ended in a Supreme Court decision in 1945, Endo versus United States, where the internment camps were deemed unconstitutional, and FDR disbanded all internment camps in America. Now, here's a short video of a Japanese internment camp near our hometown.
Okay, so we're in the Merced Internment Center in California. We are here at the memorial site where they honored the Japanese families that were lost. And over here, they have a list of names and like background information and what to go up. The people that were lost. So it says, bring only what you can carry, and like these are the names of the families. And then it goes like what they had to go through, which was hysteria, racism, failure to uphold the Constitution, and then Gamma, which means quiet, endurance, and persistence. And then it's like a picture, a great picture of like the little kids.
And of what the camps looked like, and also what they had to go through with all these soldiers watching their every move. However, they were peaceful every time. They didn't stand up and they didn't use any violence against the soldiers for putting them in their position.
On December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor was attacked by Japanese. So when this happened, it really took a toll on the American citizens and made them have a lot of fear against Japanese.
Which then led to the movement of them from the West Coast to calm down the fears of the Americans.
World War II, 1939 to 1945. After World War I, the United States shifted more towards isolationism because of the aftermath, thus stated at the beginning of the video. The Holocaust began in 1933, where Hitler tried to kill off all of the Jewish people by forcing them into concentration camps and brainwashing the pure German youth that the Jewish were lower class. Around 6 million died in the Holocaust. Although such atrocities were going on, many did not even know what was happening until years later. America did not want to be involved due to World War I and didn't even know what was going on in Germany at the beginning. This led to the Neutrality Acts. First, the Neutrality Act of 1935 banned the shipment of war materials to foreign countries and forbade American citizens to travel on foreign ships. Second was the Neutrality Act of 1936, which renewed the Neutrality Act of 1935 for another 14 months, but also got an extension of no loans or credits to foreign countries to have no foreign entanglements whatsoever. Third was the Neutrality Act of 1937, which was the same as the previous ones but with no expiration date. And lastly, the Neutrality Act of 1937, which differed from the previous one slightly, going back to intervening in foreign affairs, which is called the cash and carry. The cash and carry was passed with Roosevelt persuading Congress to pass a less restrictive act that could help solely Britain, which provided that the belligerent could purchase U.S. arms if they used their own ships and used cash. The America First Committee was then created, which was a committee made up of non-interventionist group who had placed enormous pressure on the president not to get involved into foreign affairs. Although most of the U.S. was pro-isolationism, it shifted and Lend-Lease 1941 was passed, where Britain was permitted to obtain U.S. arms if needed on credit, which outraged the America First Committee. The war itself began on 1939 through 1945. There was a non-aggression pact that included both Joseph Stalin, representing the Soviet Union, and Adolf Hitler of Germany. This was a neutrality pact that promised not to engage in military action against each other. The war was between the Allied powers and the Axis powers. The Axis powers were made up of Germany, Italy, and Japan, while the Allied powers were made up of America, Great Britain, France, the Soviet Union, and China. During World War II, the three most important men during that time were Joseph Stalin, Franklin D. Roosevelt, and Winston Churchill. They came together as the Big Three, which soon became the United Nations. The United Nations was created at the end of World War II as an international peace organization and a meeting for resolving conflicts between nations. Each attended a 4-day conference that included a confirmation decision to invade Western Europe in 1944, plans for invading southern France, and a promise made by Stalin that he would join the war against Japan when Germany was defeated. This was where tension between the Soviet Union and America began, because the Soviet Union was trying to spread communism while the U.S. was trying to stop them. This is the end of Period 7 and the start of Period 8, known as the Cold War. And that's it for Part 2 of APUSH Period 7 review. Thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.